Welcome to Kids Camp. It's time now for Critters and Creation. I'm Keith Nelson from Camp Colaqua, a beautiful spot where creation comes to life there with lots of kids. And I see some beautiful smiling faces out here today. Hey, have you guys ever had to wait for something? Like a really long time? Like maybe you were going on a special trip and you got excited about it and you wanted to go, but you had to wait. Or maybe you had to wait on someone else. Maybe even waiting on mom or dad or maybe a friend, and you have to just be patient. You know, patience is a hard thing to come by. It is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And Jesus can give us patience and peace. And today we're going to learn about an animal that has a lot of patience, more than I do. In fact, there's two different types of animals that get confused a lot in nature. One is the reptile. Can anyone raise their hand and tell me an example of a reptile? All right, let's see. We have Caleb over here.
Like a mouse and...
So a mouse has fur, so that would be a mammal, but a good guess. How about Ezekiel?
It's like a lizard.
A lizard is a reptile. Ezra, do you have another one? Oh, I'll bet you might have another one.
It's a reptile is cold-blooded like a snake.
Like a snake and a lizard. So we have snakes and lizards that are reptiles. How about a frog? Is a frog a reptile? No. So we've determined that it must be something else. Who can raise their hand and tell me what type of animal a frog is? How about Noah? What type of animal is a frog if it's not a reptile?
Amphibian.
Whoa, Noah knew. Way to go. Amphibian, she said. And the definition of an amphibian is an animal that spends part of its actual life cycle breathing water and part of it breathing air. When frogs are babies, they're called what? They breathe water. I think Miss Elaine knows.
Tadpole.
Tadpoles. Have you ever caught a tadpole? Yes, they're fun little wiggly guys that get to squiggle in the water, and they're fun to try to catch. And then they grow legs, and then they become frogs and breathe air. Well, today, we have some special ones for you today, and Miss Andrea is going to help because we have two of them. And these aren't just any frogs. Yeah, these frogs are carnivorous. So let's just slow it down a minute and see. What does carnivorous mean? Okay, Noah again.
It eats meat.
It eats meat. These are not your friendly plant-eating frogs. These guys will eat mice and they'll swallow them whole. Now they have teeth, but they don't chew. They go, nope, and they swallow them entirely whole. And their eyeballs help them swallow. So when this pet frog, called a Pacman frog, swallows his food whole, he can close his eyes down on the top of his head, and we'll show you how he does that in a minute, and that will help push the food down and swallow it. So he actually swallows with his eyeballs. Isn't that silly? Yeah, so we're going to have one here go on that side, and then we'll switch. The little one over here is a green Pacman frog named Tank, and he's only 2 weeks old. He'll get to be big like his, friend, the yellow Pacman frog, and she doesn't have a name. You might have to help me name her. But this Pacman frog will turn so you can see right on. Now, why are we leaving them in cages instead of holding them in our hands and bringing them around to you? Well, let me tell you why. You know why? Let's see if Caleb knows why.
They're poisonous?
Well, that would be a great guess. This is one time where we're more of a threat to them than they are to us. The oil on human hands, humans have oily hands. Did you know that? That oil interacts with their skin and can harm them when they get handled a lot. So we're going to let you look at him through the top here. And let me see if I can take the lid off this so you have a better view. And he can jump really far and hard, but we'll push his eyeballs and let you see how they just pop right down. Isn't that funny? And he can put his eyeballs right down. Now, the Pacman frog you'll notice is a little bit wet or moist. They love to sit in the mud. Do you kids like to play in the mud? No, some kids do. I did when I was your age. And the Pacman frog loves to hide and wallow in the mud almost like a pig. And the Pacman frog will have so many hours of just sitting with just his eyeballs sticking out of the mud. We didn't give him enough mud to do that here because we wanted you to see him. But they prefer deep, deep mud, and they'll nestle and burrow and squish and wiggle right down in the mud so all you can see are the little eyeballs poking up. And then, what do you think they do while they're sitting there? Ah, yeah, this is his eyes that go down right there. And what he's doing, or she, if they're under the mud sitting, they're waiting. Remember, I told you, these are the most patient animals, probably some of the most patient in the world, because they can wait or sit in the mud for months at a time. Not just minutes or hours or days or weeks, but months. Yes, Jude has a question here for us.
How long does it take to lay eggs?
So it will take it about an hour to lay. That's a good question. And you know how many eggs they lay? They can lay up to 2,000 eggs. And the reason for that is probably because most of them get eaten. That's a lot of eggs, isn't that? That's a lot of kids. You think you have a lot of brothers and sisters. Mr. Pacman, he has a lot of brothers and sisters. Yes, Rosalind.
How long can it live up to?
Good question. So this frog can live to be about 5 to 10, and the record is 15 years. So they're not real long. In the wild, maybe 5 years. In captivity, a little longer because they don't have anyone attacking them or preying on them like a predator. Yes, Alexia.
Where do they live?
These guys live strictly in the Amazon jungles of Brazil, in the South American rainforest. And where they live, there's huge trees called kapok trees. And those kapok trees will provide shade and trap the moisture on the forest floor and the jungle floor. So they always have what's called detritus. Can you say detritus?
Detritus.
That's a fun word. Detritus is all the leaves and sticks and dirt on the ground of the forest. And that's where they like to brumate, which means their form of hibernate. So if it's colder out, they'll get down in there and they'll slow their system down and just wait. Many animals will go hunting for food, but the Pacman frogs wait for food to come to them. Naomi has a question. Oh, sorry, Nalani.
How long do the tadpoles get to live with their parents?
Oh, so the tadpoles, so the parents never get to be with them. When the parents lay their eggs, they just forget about them. Isn't that terrible? And what happens is the tadpoles have to fend for themselves and hunt mosquito larvae and little insects while they're in the swimming stage. And then when they get to be adults, they learn that game of patience, to just sit and watch for food to come to them because they're hiding. And eventually a cricket or a grasshopper or maybe a little mouse or something will come by, and when they move, after sitting for so long, they can still jump 2 to 3 times their body length. Boom! With an explosive jump, and then gulp, and that's where they get their name Pacman, because someone thought it reminded them of a video game from a long time ago, Wonka Wonka, where the little guy would go around eating everything. And that's what they do. They eat just about everything that moves, including other Pacman frogs. If anything comes by, they'll swallow it whole. Kenan, did you have a question? Did I see your hand raised? Or oh, I already answered it. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, Caleb has a question.
Why do the Pacman frogs eat the other Pacman frogs?
Well, they are not picky about what they eat, and there is a term for that in nature. Do you know what the term is when an animal eats its own kind? It's called cannibalism. And that's kind of sad, and that's something that came about after sin. That's not part of God's original design, and they can get confused. But You know what? The way they wait and sit in that mud all day and sometimes for months, you know what that makes me think of? Someone else that had to have patience. And the one that had to have patience that I'm remembering from the Bible was Noah and his family. Yes, Kenan. He had a question, I think. Kenan, let's see. What's your question, Kenan?
They survive long without food.
They can survive many, many weeks without food as long as there's moisture. And when they get dry, they'll shed their dry skin, eat that, and then be fresh and wet again. Isn't that weird what they will eat? So Noah was in the ark, and it rained for, 40 days and 40 nights. And then, do you think they got out of the ark? No. They had to wait longer for the water to go down, and then finally the ark ran into a mountain, Mount Ararat, and crushed into it, and God led it there and protected it there. Then could they get out? No, they're still stuck in the boat. And how long were they stuck in that boat? After they landed on that mountain, probably a good 6 more months of sitting in a boat and waiting on the Lord's timing, because He closed the door of the ark and only the Lord could open the door of the ark, right? And so that was a lot of patience. So Noah and the Pacman frog have a lot in common. They both wait patiently for their needs to be met. And we could take a lesson from that. But Rosalind has a question. I don't mean to ignore you.
Can the frog stay under the mud for a whole year?
He can, with just his eyeballs out, as long as he's moist and getting some nutrients. They can just stay there living in that one little spot under a tree for a whole year. And imagine what it must have been like for Noah and his family, all dark. Close your eyes for a minute and think about it. You can't see the sun, you can't see the moon, and month after month goes by, and you're waiting on the Lord to open the door. Would that be hard, boys and girls? Yeah, finally you can open your eyes and the light comes in, and Jesus and God said to Noah, you know what, you can go now. You can go out into the world. And He showed them, once they got out, a beautiful rainbow. That was a promise that He would never do that by destroying the world with water again. But He is coming back soon. And we're waiting on Him. Many people are waiting on Jesus to take us home and live with Him, where we can live with animals that aren't carnivorous anymore and don't eat each other and don't get confused, where there will be perfect harmony. And you could even have a giant pet frog in your living room that might even talk to you and say things and greet you in the morning. But meanwhile, boys and girls, we're going to wait here on earth for Jesus to come in His time, when He's ready. And He will come at just the right time. In fact, He supplies all of our needs at just the right time. Not too soon, not too late. Just when we need it, that's when He supplies our needs. He does it for the Pacman frog, and He did it for Noah and his 3 sons and their wives. So I know He'll do it for you. Thank you, boys and girls, for coming to Kids Camp, and I hope that you can wait upon the Lord and trust in Him too. Goodbye.